Some stories just get under your skin. In 1978, a man walked out of his front door and was never seen again. There was no argument, no note, no struggle. This is the story of Robert Hayes. And the really disturbing part isn't just that he vanished, it's how incredibly easy it was.
So let's go back. The date is June 14th, 1978. It's just a totally ordinary afternoon, the kind that usually fades from memory. But this one became the start of a mystery that's still unsolved more than 4 decades later.
So what happened? Well, it's almost shockingly simple. A man named Robert Hayes did something millions of us do every single day without a second thought. He walked out of his house to run a quick errand.
And that's it. He was gone. He literally just stepped out of his life and into a complete void, a mystery that has baffled everyone ever since. Think about it. There was no big fight, no dramatic note left on the kitchen table, no signs of a break-in or anything out of place. And when you really start to dig into the facts of this case, the most chilling part of this whole thing is how effortlessly he just ceased to exist. This case is a stark reminder of a time not really that long ago when a person could just step out of frame and disappear from the world forever. To really wrap our heads around how someone could just vanish like that, you have to picture the world of 1978. This was an analog world, folks. It operated by a completely different set of rules than the one we live in today.
I mean, just think about it for a second. There were no cell phones to ping his location, no GPS in his car. Forget about security cameras on every street corner. That just wasn't a thing. No social media check-ins, no digital trail of credit card swipes. Back then, life ran on routine and trust. Disappearing completely was rare, but if it happened, well, the tools to find answers were almost non-existent.
Now, let's talk about the man at the center of this mystery. Because honestly, if you were to make a list of people who would never just walk away from their life, Robert Hayes would probably be at the very top.
So who was this guy? He was 42 years old, a husband, a father of 2 kids. He'd been working the same exact job as a factory supervisor for over 15 years. Everyone who knew him used the same words to describe him: quiet, reliable, predictable. This wasn't some risk-taker. No gambling debts, no heavy drinking, no history of mental illness. By all accounts, Robert Hayes had absolutely zero reason to just disappear.
So what happened on that specific day? The timeline of his last known moments is so strikingly ordinary, which of course makes what happened next all the more haunting.
All right, so here's how it all went down. Robert gets home from work around 4:30, like always. He chats with his wife for a bit, changes his shoes. Then, around 5 p.m., he mentions he's just got to run a quick errand. 5 minutes later, he's out the door with nothing but his wallet and keys. Totally normal stuff.
In his last words to his family, "I'll be back before dinner." Just think about how casual that is. It doesn't signal any kind of trouble or urgency. It's a simple promise from a man who fully expected to be home in an hour or so.
But of course, dinner came and went, the hours started to tick by. You can just imagine that feeling in the house, right? Where concern slowly starts to curdle into panic. Eventually, they called the police. The investigation started right away, but what they found, well, it only made things a whole lot stranger.
The very next morning, investigators find Robert's car, and this is where it becomes an impossible puzzle. It's parked just a few miles from his home. It's locked. It has a nearly full tank of gas. Inside, they find his wallet, his ID, and his money. There are absolutely no signs of a struggle, no witnesses. Everything was exactly where it should be, except for Robert.
So, with absolutely no evidence and zero leads, the case went cold, fast. And in the decades that have followed, that void has been filled with nothing but speculation and theories.
So the first and probably most common theory is that he just left. That for some reason nobody knew about, this quiet, predictable man decided, you know what, I'm done. And he just abandoned his family to start over somewhere else.
But that theory just falls apart when you look at it. To start a new life, you need a plan, you need resources. Investigators found nothing. No secret bank accounts, no travel plans, not a thing. And for a man everyone described as a devoted father, voluntarily cutting off all contact with his kids, it just never made sense to anyone who knew him.
So that brings us to the second major theory: foul play. The idea that Robert was simply a random victim, that he just happened to encounter the wrong person at the absolute wrong time, and he was either abducted or killed. But again, you have to ask, Where is the proof? The scene at his car was pristine. No broken glass, no blood, no signs of a fight. If this was a crime, it was a flawless one. The main problem was, and still is, a total and complete lack of evidence.
And this leads us to a third, kind of ambiguous theory, the unexpected encounter. The idea is that something totally unplanned happened. Maybe Robert stepped out of his car to help someone, or he met someone he knew unexpectedly, and that chance encounter somehow led to his disappearance.
You know, this theory is compelling because it could explain the lack of a struggle, but it's also completely impossible to prove. It's basically a placeholder for the unknown, an attempt to explain a silent, seamless exit from the world. And in the end, it just leaves us with even more questions. Robert Hayes was officially declared legally dead in the early 1990s, but his case was never actually closed. It remains a permanent question mark, a really chilling example of how a person could just vanish into thin air.
His family never stopped wondering. No remains were ever found, no confession was ever made. Remember, in a world before technology was watching our every move, Robert Hayes didn't disappear in the dark of night, he disappeared in broad daylight. And after all these years, we're left with that one central question. And maybe that's the true legacy of this case. It's a haunting reminder that sometimes there just are no easy answers. Some mysteries don't get solved with time. They just get deeper, leaving us all to wonder about the stories that have no end.